Hello, everybody. This is your friendly masked hero here with something new. I am currently working on another episode of Asgard versus the Universe, and we have a Deadpool episode coming out next week. But I was informed that the Jubilee Hero Kit, or the Hero Pack, was out, and I figured that I would do an unboxing both to look at Jubilee for the first time. I've only ever seen the cards from the initial announcement, and I figured why not just explore this and have a little bit of fun with it, because I don't know, I want to get into content creation. Scripted content takes an awful lot of work. I hope that comes through. But I figured what we would do is we would open this up and we would go through it real quick. And, hopefully I can get, 15, 20 minutes of your time and get some of my thoughts about these cards out of the way, because I don't know that I've seen the entire hero pack yet. I'm going to just fix my camera just a little bit, just to be a little bit closer. Obviously, the box was big enough that it kind of broke the original frame I intended on. But, we'll just pause the recording real quick, and then we will open this pack up. All right, look at this. Clearly should have maybe clipped my fingernails a little bit here, but we won't focus on that. I won't let that part of my own insecurities get through too much. I'll also not talk while I'm opening the thing, because that's probably just annoying. All right, so we will break it off with the actual hero suite real quick. So, as we're probably all aware, we've got Jubilation Lee, our favorite 90s audience insert, right up there with Kitty Pryde in the 80s, and I suppose probably like Pixie in the mid-2000s. I feel bad, and I bet some of my X-Cast fans who watch this kind of content will probably be able to give me a better idea. I can't think of who the audience insert for the 2010s would be. I want to say Hope's 5, but they did not make that much of a cultural impact, whereas Kitty Pryde and Jubilee definitely did. And if you read the comics, Pixie's right there. I am getting off on a tangent, and we are all of 3 minutes in. So we've got Jubilation Lee, a 3 recovery, 6 hand size, 9 health alter ego with the ability Mallrat. The action being search your deck for the shopping spree player side scheme and put it into play. Limit once per phase. I like that. I think my original way that I kind of absorbed this card from the article was that it was basically a setup ability. And it was a couple weeks later that I kind of looked back at it and went, oh, this is something that we will see a lot more often. And we'll just skip ahead just a second to look at Shopping Spree, which is a player side scheme, cost 0 with 2 threat on it. I like it already. Let's see how that compares against her ability to thwart. Okay, so on the base level, not going to be able to just knock it out. I'm going to need a little bit of support, but like our buddy Cable, we will have a plan before we do that. Next, why am I getting rid of that card? You probably want to look at it. Shopping Spree, 0, 2 threat. Threat cannot be removed from this scheme by other heroes or allies. You knew that already. Alter ego action. Exhaust your identity. Remove 1 threat from here. Any player may trigger this ability. Oh, okay. I like that a lot more. I'm rediscovering this pack is what I'm learning. So that's actually really interesting. So you go get it. You put it into play. Do you put it directly into play? You do put it into play. So on the first turn, you could have... if you're playing multiplayer, you and your, cohorts could, strip all this away, get all the threat off of it. I know for the most part when I'm playing multiplayer, at least one of the heroes is spending their first turn building. They might make a basic attack, but they might just go out of their way to improve their board state, whether that be Valkyrie, Thor, Cable in some respects. Although usually he will benefit from being able to ready when he takes out whatever side scheme he picked. But yeah, this actually seems like an interesting way to spend the first turn where you use your alter ego to wear this down, and then when defeated, the player who defeated the scheme searches their deck and discard pile for an item card and puts it into play. What was I going to say? Oh, yes. So I do see that this does have the kind of minor setback of only the person that defeats it goes to get an item, but I don't know how many items are actually in the game, and it might just be best to kind of have another alter ego take the first point off and then have Jubilee flip over and thwart. I don't know. I don't know what the game plan is here yet. It'll probably become more obvious as we explore the kit and as we just explore Jubilee as a hero. But I do like this. I like the idea of going and getting a side scheme that's specifically for her. But let's take a step back and let's look at actually Jubilee as an actual hero. So we've got 1 thwart, 1 attack, 2 defense, and hand size goes down to 5, still has the 9 hit points. And then the totally resource ability to exhaust Jubilee and make a wild resource. So a lot like Miss Marvel, her stats are probably not that important in all honesty. But I do love the idea that she makes a resource. So many heroes that I play with, I sometimes wish that just had an extra resource. Like, I've got the Asgards on the brain because I literally was working on an Asgard versus the Universe episode. I was scripting it as we were moving into the weekend. And boy, oh boy, do I wish that the Asgardians just had one more resource creation. Thor sort of has it with the 2 Gods of Thunder, but Valkyrie kind of hurts for it. This is not an Asgard versus the Universe commentary track. But either way, if I remember correctly, as we get further into this, we will see why making a wild resource is so beneficial. So we've got her signature ally, Wolverine. I'm kind of reminded of the fact that the 2 of them are featured on Sidekick, and as I'm looking over this card right now, I don't necessarily know that Sidekick Sidekick might work better for Wolverine than it does for the Jubilee ally. Either way, so we've got a 4 cost, 4 health ally with 1 thwart and 3 attack. The attacks have piercing. Consequential damage is 2 for the attack. And in response, when you change the alter ego form, heal 3 damage from Wolverine. So, kind of just looking at this, obviously every hero is going to have a reason to go to alter ego on a regular basis. And if there's enough items, I can see why you would want to get shopping spree a few times and just sort of like roll with it. So in theory, flipping Wolverine or flipping over to alter ego and healing up Wolverine might be something you're doing quite often. And looking at this kind of like attacking for 3 and thwarting for 1 and then healing him back up, that seems like a really good ally to kind of like Voltron up and put equipment onto or upgrades onto. My Magic the Gathering is going to slip through every once in a while here. But the ability to just like throw an upgrade on him and maybe give him a little bit of extra health so that he has 5 health is probably going to be an interesting thing to do. And then kind of you get to attack twice and heal up most of the damage on him. But either way, I like this ally. He's a little expensive, but I think that since we're making a wild resource, that 4 is probably going to be a little soft and it's more of like a 3. But kind of as I've learned from Star-Lord, just because a card can be less expensive doesn't mean that you should assume that every card is going to be less expensive than it kind of says on the tin. Our first item would be Jubilee's coat. It gives Jubilee +1 thwart for a cost of 2. And a hero response, after you play a thwart event, exhaust Jubilee's coat and choose a scheme. Remove 1 threat from that scheme for each different resource type used to pay for this event. So, wild resources coming off Jubilee is good. I know that her pack has resource cards that have different resource types. So this in theory is going to help you to sort of, in the same way that like Nebula does, chip off extra damage here or there, while also just making her thwart better, kind of making that one into a 2 and just sort of making her ability to handle schemes a little bit more realistic. Overall, I don't know if this is the first item I would get, but I guess it really depends. if I'm in a justice thing, I probably go get this. If I'm in an aggression deck, maybe not. But either way, I can think of a lot of times when just that extra point of thwart is a valuable thing to do. Next up, we've got another item, Jubilee's sunglasses. Cost 2. Item again. It gives Jubilee +1 attack. So, when you need it, you got it. And as a hero response, after you make an attack event, exhaust Jubilee's sunglasses and choose an enemy. Deal 1 damage to that enemy. Deal 1 damage to that enemy for each different resource used to pay for that event. I can see this being helpful, kind of in the same way that Jubilee's code is. I didn't think about this right away, but this adds context to the fact that events that cost... You can reevaluate cards that cost 1, 2, and 3, or I guess even 4, because of just the amount of resources you can use. Now, granted, yes, would I rather do a clear the area versus a 4 justice? The amount of resources you're using up, there is that tension, but I do think that recontextualizing these attack events and these sword events to maybe do more suddenly makes the fact that they cost more kind of more lucrative. Once again, Magic the Gathering kind of leaking out here, but there was a mechanic, a keyword about 10 years ago that cared about how many different colors of mana you used. And one of the things that the Magic community kind of figured out eventually was, if they cost more, I can put more different colors in. And I think that that's probably what we're going to see with Jubilee to a little bit, to an extent. Next up, we've got... in the right place. Okay, next up, we've got Blinding Flash, which we only have one of. Actually, real quick, I'm just going to structure these so that I know as I'm going through. Okay, what we're looking at here. Okay, so do we only have those 2 items? That's interesting. Once again, I don't know the item spread throughout the history of the game. I'm a little surprised there's only 2 items. So Shopping Spree, I guess, will maybe get a limited use, but still, being able to go out and find cards in your deck or your discard pile is lucrative. So we're not going to lessen that. But that's not what we're talking about. Now we're talking about Blinding Flash, a 3-cost event, superpower, with the hero action of choose X enemies, where X is the number of different resource types used to pay for this event. Doesn't say printed, so I suppose if you have 2 wilds, you can kind of pick either or. You pick the X enemies, and then you stun and confuse each of the chosen enemies. I can see this being very helpful, both covering you're in hero form or you're in alter ego form. I think in multiplayer, this is going to be pretty helpful, because then no matter what form your team is in, you are going to be able to negate some of the villain's turn. And if there is a problematic, minion that you just do not want to have to deal with, you once again can just sort of set them aside for a turn. And you know what? Once again, like I said before, costing 3 is not necessarily the drawback that it might seem like. I guess I don't know the game well enough in an economy standpoint to say is 2 or 3, how much is a stun and confuse worth economically? But either way, I like this card, and I think this fits into pretty much any strategy you want to go with Jubilee. Besides, no, I don't have a besides. I kind of got ahead of myself there. Then we've got 3 copies of Firecracker. Got those positioned real good for you there. Love to see it. 2-cost event, attack superpower, hero action, deal 4 damage to an enemy. If you paid for this card with 2 different resource types, stun that enemy. I am all for this. This is a very economical card, at least from my perspective. I could be completely off base there, but this seems like the kind of card. Oh, and they've each got a different resource type. All the better. I think that is so cool to have basically the same card, but contextually they have different resource types, which is very relevant to Jubilee. Yeah, no, for the most part, I like this. I am not a min-max person, so to say is 2 cost for 4 damage great? Other people will go out there and say whether that is true or not. That's not really where I'm going to stand from, because I don't want to give you bad advice. But to me, this seems like a pretty solid card. Next up, we have Flash of Light. 3 copies, once again, different resource types. And a 2-cost event, Superpower Thwart, Hero Action Thwart. Remove 3 threat from a scheme. If you paid for this event using 2 different resource types, confuse an enemy. Much like Firecracker, I think that... Oh, gosh. I feel like they are more stringent with Thwart. So the fact that this is 1 less is probably relevant, but you have far much more health you need to worry about than Thwart most of the time. So I think the fact that this does not say the main scheme is relevant. The amount of times where I've been tripped up by that is a non-zero amount of times. So once again, this is economical. You don't have anywhere to hide with trying to do 2 different resource types, but the ability to confuse an enemy when you're already thwarting, that seems like gravy. And in the right situation, you could be talking about quite a bit of scheming that you are negating. I've been living in the world of On the Run with the Marauders, so they are on my mind here, and oh my gosh, is there so much scheming that you need to negate, and this seems like probably a good place to do it. Got 1 copy of Grand Finale. I don't think we've seen this card prior to this. I know there was a stream last week, so it's possible that this is old news to some people, but to me, I see a 3-cost event, attack superpower. Superpowers are everywhere. Give me some deft focus. I think we're getting that in the Magneto pack, so that's exciting. But Grand Finale. Oh, actually, for this, it's not exciting. This is actually another one of those you don't want to reduce. You don't want to reduce the cost of this card. So 3-cost event. Deal 2 damage to an enemy. For each different resource type you use to pay for this card, choose an enemy and deal 2 damage to it. So we're looking at possibly 8 damage, which spread across how many of your bodies you want seems good. Let me just think this over. Once again, it's not printed resource type, so don't quote me on this. Don't decry me if I get this completely wrong, but I'm pretty sure that means that if you have 2 wilds, you can do a wild and a brain resource. Overall, even if you're just doing 2 different resource types, 3 mana for 6 across the bodies you need, I realize that people might not necessarily take tough seriously. I do take tough seriously. Yes, you are wasting an extra damage. But if I was able to, for 3 resources, take off 3 toughs, once again, like in the Marauders on the run scenario, not the most economical use of my time and my cards, but not something to overlook in my mind. Lastly, for her kit, we've got the Plasmoid Energies, which are just energy resources with the different combinations. I like this design space, and it will only help her. It will only help Jubilee to play her spells and get as much out of them as she can. So overall, just looking at the kit, that's not the card. Overall, just looking at the kit, this generated wild resource is going to be very helpful. It does sort of help that she's got the resources, and basically everything else she has costs 2 or 3, which I know I'd had to go. I'm not going to pull out the Iceman pack, but I know that there was some contention with the Iceman pack being a little bit more expensive in terms of all of his events. I feel like when she's making a resource, once again, you can sort of shave off a cost off of the first card you play every turn. And I do think it is really important to think of Jubilee a lot like Ms. Marvel, where her stats are there, but she also is a resource manager, or a resource outlet, and that might be the thing you're using for her the most. All right, getting into our actual new cards, and I will find the spot where this breaks. There's a lot of cards here. Okay, so we've got Chamber, who is a 4-cost ally, 2 thwart, 2 attack, 3 health. Chamber takes -1 consequential damage when he attacks a confused enemy. I like the flavor there. I think the balance of the 2 stats is really nice. And I think the fact that you can basically do either a combination of those 3 times is great. I don't know that I am going to get a lot of use out of this card, but this is kind of my knee-jerk reaction, and maybe there's a little bit more than I'm not thinking about. But I don't want to overlook the fact that 2 thwart, 2 attack is a pretty good stat line in terms of like just what you need. The 4 is a little expensive, but I also do think that negating some of getting extra activations when you attack confused enemies is definitely not something to overlook. Husk. We've got Husk. So Paige Guthrie, Cannonball's sister. Another 4-cost ally with 2 and 2. So maybe it's not as special as I just made it sound. Knee-jerk reactions everywhere. Once again, 3 health. And interrupt when Husk uses a basic power. Spend up to 3 resources. If you spend at least 1 energy resource, Husk gets +1 to the power that was used. If you use a Genius resource, heal 1 damage from Husk. And if you use a Strength resource, ready Husk after this use. Oh man, that is pretty good. I think this is kind of in the similar way that I don't use Plan B a lot, but sometimes Plan B is great. Sometimes Machine Man is great. And so having an outlet for cards, 3 is a lot. If you're using up 3, that means you're pretty much skipping on everything else. But how often do you have a dead hand where you're like, okay, I can do 1 thing, and that's it? In this case, you have an outlet for those, and that should not be overlooked. And if you're just spending 1 of them to basically heal and get an extra activation, or bump up one of her stats to just sort of like get over that hump to deal the finishing blow to an ally, or even to a minion. I think that this is a good card that has a lot going for it, but just needs to be explored. There's a lot to happen here. This is definitely the morphling of allies, and some people will get that. Got 3 copies of Disguise with our buddy Patch, and it is a 1-cost upgrade item, so we've got another item to go search out. Play under any player's control, max of 1 per player. Action, exhaust. Action, thwart. Exhaust Disguise and your identity. Remove 2 threat from a scheme. So I like this, especially in the Black Widow stays in her alter ego form, whatever poker deck that is on Marvel CDB. I think this was already called out, but like this is really cool. The fact that you can any alter ego now, or I guess any hero that doesn't have a great amount of thwart does have the ability to bump that up to 2. I know that that's probably not the best thing in the world, but an alter ego being able to thwart for 2 is pretty great. And I think that once you divorce yourself from I only go to alter ego to heal, this card does have value. Then we've got Waylay. I wanted to call this Warlock, even though we've already got Warlock, and this is not Warlock. Waylay, a 3-cost event. Attack. After your hero thwarts, deal 4 damage to an enemy. 7 damage instead if that thwart removed the last threat from the scheme. It's a little expensive. And I think you probably only want to do this if you're making a finishing blow, or if you're going to get that 7. Once again, I'm not a min-max person, but I can absolutely see the judgments that could be ruled against this card, that it's not too efficient, but at the same time, even a 1 of, I know that I don't want to completely break apart a consistency on a deck, but at the same time, like, I can see the appeal of this. Then we've got 3 steps ahead. Really looking good there. So three steps ahead. 3-cost event. Thwart. For each different resource type you used to pay for this card, choose a scheme and remove 2 threat from it. So I like the fact that this is a justice card in itself. It's not part of Jubilee's kit. This feels an awful lot like her finale card, but this can be used by anybody. And oh my gosh, so this, if it weren't for the fact that, and Thor is always going to be on my brain, if it wasn't for the fact that Thor kind of wants to push for an awful lot of energy resources, this would, in a Justice build of Thor, or just in any hero that doesn't have a great amount of thwarting, I could see this being very helpful to sort of hit as many different schemes as you could, many different schemes as you can find. Not the best card, but I honestly would not sleep on this card. I would have a 1 of or a 2 of in a Justice deck just to see how it works out. That gets us through. So, Generation X. I think we saw this before. Maybe? I think this was part of the... Oh. Okay, I just saw her Nemesis. That's interesting. Okay. I think we saw this card before. I feel like it stands out. So, either way. Player side scheme, Generation X, cost 0, 3 threat per player. Each X-Men character gets +1 thwart while making a basic thwart against this scheme. Okay, this scheme. Each player, when defeated, each player may search their deck and discard pile for an identity-specific event and add it to their hand. In multiplayer, I do like this. Jubilee has plenty of events that she wants to play, so she can get a solid use out of this. And I think that if you're an X-Men hero, this is, not an auto include, but this is going to get a pretty good amount of use. I think outside of the X-Men, outside of the mutants, I see a use for this. And if you're an event-heavy hero, you're either going to want to have this around for 2-player, or you're going to want to, if you have this, mulligan aggressively for it, because I do think that, outside of, I guess take an example of somebody who can do this naturally. Deadpool being able to go find one of his identity-specific events is a very powerful tool. I know that, and I know my oversight in not doing it enough, you will see on Tuesday. I'm not going to pretend to be super knowledgeable about player side schemes. I just do not have a philosophy for them yet, but I do think that this is an interesting card, and I think very similar to the basic player side scheme that allows you to go look for an identity-specific upgrade. This is probably going to be, where you need it, this is going to be essential. Then we've got, the Power of Justice. Okay, so we've got Cable on the Power of Justice. You know what's actually missing from all of this now that I'm looking over it? I didn't necessarily assume that we were going to get this, but I guess I sort of thought maybe they would be kind of disguising this and not telling us about it. I was thinking that sort of in the same vein as Iceman, sync. So kind of in the same vein as Iceman, where we got the upgrades attached to enemies matter kind of archetype. I thought maybe they would sneak 1 or 2 of those into other packs to sort of like make it a thing that existed across multiple aspects, but maybe that's just going to be an aggression thing. And maybe 2 years from now, there'll be more of it and there'll be in other aspects, and they were just sort of testing the grounds. But either way, I'm noticing that now. It was something that I thought we might see as kind of like they weren't going to tell us, but it was going to be their kind of thing. So we've got Sync, classic Generation X, X-Men, tragically passed away and then came back during Krakoa. But in our game, he is a 3-cost ally with 1 thwart, 1 attack, and 3 health. And you can only play if you're an X-Men. An interrupt, when you use a basic power, exhaust Sync, you get +1 to that power. So I am a big fan of it's a basic support for Ariel that basically exhausts to do this same thing. It came in the Angel pack, and I tried it out with I tried it out with Thor, because of course I tried it out with Thor, but I also tried it out with Spectrum, just because those are 2 heroes that very easily get Ariel, outside of Angel. And I liked it, but it was a little inconsistent for me. I have to wonder if that's going to be the same story with Sync, is It's a interesting ability, and I think being basic is also interesting. It's kind of like your fourth copy of whatever that event is, or that support is, but in the form of an ally. I'm not sure. I like this design space. I like that it's basic so everybody can use it. And I like that it's an ally that you're not just going to attack with. You do have a reason to kind of keep it around, and basic power. Okay, so yeah, you could do this with even like recovery, which, oh gosh, there's a lot of philosophy around recovery that I feel like is kind of untapped, because adding, turning a 4 into a 5 can be a big deal. So yeah, I guess time will tell, but I would say that this is a card that I will definitely be trying out. Okay, just put the Nemesis. There are so many cards here. Okay. Wow. We now have a card just called Cell Phone. That's okay. 2-cost item, another item. 3 uses, action, exhaust cell phone, remove 1 charge counter from here and choose a player. That player makes a basic attack or thwart with a character they control. That character gets +1 thwart and attack for this use. Okay. Thematically, this is a very weird card. But at the same time, it is a basic card and it's an item that you can put into any deck and make Shopping Spree relevant in multiplayer for any deck. So it doesn't have to be the hero, it can be any character, and it's basically sync all over again. This could be a hidden gem. It's a weird card. It's a weird card in several ways, but you have my attention. I don't even know what to say about this card. This is interesting. And I think the interaction with Shopping Spree maybe makes it more relevant than I'm letting on. Huh. Okay, cool. Oh my gosh, that's great. Okay, so I don't get a lot of use out of X-Gene, but I definitely would be on the side of we needed X-Gene. I'm actually surprised how often identity-specific event does not come up as nearly as much as I hoped it would. But at the same time, in someone like Domino, in someone like Cable, in Jubilee, this is relevant. I'm happy we got a reprint here. I was gonna say it should use different art, but it's in the same general wave. So I think that saying that was would have been out of turn. All right, multi-talented. It's framed up good for you. I guess only one of them needs to be framed up. You know what they do after that. Okay, so 3-cost event, attack thwart. That has its pluses and minuses, but you have my attention. A hero action, if you paid for this event using at least one of these things, do. Okay, so strength. Actually, wait a second. Okay, so this is a templating thing that I don't love. Where was it? Oh, okay. So yeah, this is okay. This is designer getting into me. The fact that these don't go in the same order, from a templating perspective, is a little strange to me. Either way, okay. So if you use a strength resource, deal 2 damage to an enemy. If you use a mind resource or a genius resource, remove 2 threat from a scheme. Energy resource, heal from your identity 2 damage. Not the best card, but at the same time, I thought basic spell was going to be so-so with magic, and for magic it is kind of so-so, but for Scarlet Witch, having even just 1 basic spell has not been the worst thing in the world. So I think when you expand that out to any hero, oh man, I guess if you can do all 3 of these, kudos to you. If you can do 2 of them, I think that's the point when you have to assess this. If you're just doing 1 of these, it's nice, but I would not recommend it. This is just kind of a strength resource if you're only getting 1 of them. Once again, all 3 of them, great. 2 of them, probably good. 1 of them, no. And then, her obligation, grounded. So Probably pretty run-of-the-mill here, but we'll see. Give to the Jubilation Elite player. And as an additional cost to change to your hero form during your turn, you must spend 2 resources of the same type. Okay. When revealed, change alter ego form. Okay. Okay, yeah, so it takes you out of your hero form. All right. And then after you play a Jubilee event, remove this card from the game. So basically, because all of her events are, of course, they're going to be hero actions. Yep. Okay, they're all hero actions. So first you need to find two resources of the same type. That shouldn't be the hardest thing in the world, but you also lose access to your hero form generating a resource. Find 2 of the same resource, then flip over and then play an event. There is some tax to this. I do like this kind of, and it does remove from the game. I like this design space more than some of the early obligations. God, I'm getting flashes. I'm sorry for being a tangent machine. I'm getting flashes of Minty Fan from Arkham Horror, where her weakness sort of limits you in a way that requires you to kind of pay a lot of the same resource stylistically. Not the worst not the worst obligation in the world. I like the design space. I like the theming of it all. I guess time will tell if this is really one that really kind of throws a wrench into your plans. Oh, I like the Deadpool sticker there. And 1 copy of Unlikely Duo, which... no. Okay, there's a second copy. I figured they wouldn't do that to us, but you never know. So Unlikely Duo, 2 cost event, team up card, Jubilee and Wolverine. Action, confused enemy, deal 4 damage to confused enemy. Okay, so very much is confused enemy, deal 2 damage to it, or you could spread it. I am very much on the side of like the Winning Hand podcast, where they will say that these team up events probably you could shave a resource cost off of them, and they would of course be better, but they might be playable. I think if I'm in it, I realize this puts you in a position where basically your identity specific ally is just a wild resource for both of these. But if I was playing a game with Wolverine and Jubilee, I wouldn't have a problem putting this in both decks. Alone, not sure. And because there is not a basic there's an aggression Wolverine, but there's not a basic Jubilee. There's not like a Cyclops deck where you'd be able to kind of cheat this. So yeah, it's typical run of the mill team up card. Good when you can play it. Wild resource when you're struggling to make that happen. All right, and to my surprise, the Nemesis is Nanny of Nanny and the Orphan Maker. I am surprised by this, but Fantasy Flight is really good at surprising me. Holy cow, this is run long. I am sorry, I did not realize I would talk I'm recording at 40 minutes at this point. This is probably going to get 10 minutes will probably get shaved off just in tangents. Okay, so Nanny is a minion to scheme to attack for health, mutant, toughness. After Nanny attacks you, if you control 1 or more allies, search the encounter deck and discard pile and set aside area for 1 copy of Lost Child and reveal it. Lost Child. Okay, so there's 2 copies of that. The Nanny and the Orphan Maker are pretty dark characters. I realize he looks kind of comical here, but kind of dark characters. Lost Child. It's okay. This is not where I thought I was going to go. Wait. Treat attached ally as as a regressed minion with a blank text box. Attached minion's scheme is equal to the printed thwart and does not take consequential damage. When revealed, attach to the ally with the highest cost without Lost Child attached. Attached ally engages its controller. Otherwise, this card gains Surge. And -1 scheme. Well, that makes sense. Nanny does go out of her way to kidnap mutants. So this, from a flavor standpoint, this makes sense. From a thematic thing, this is just as dark as I was expecting it to be. Nanny is in Marvel Champions. That's astonishing. The other two are... God, this is such a comical character for a dark. There's a lot of dissonance there. Okay, so Battlesuit is an armor. It gets +1 attack. Attached to the minion with the fewest remaining hit points. Otherwise, this card gains Surge. So it does go to a minion. Attached minion gets +3 hit points and gains Aerial. Okay. The 3 hit points makes this card relevant. The extra attack is... Okay, it makes the extra attack actually worth it. If it didn't gain any extra health, this would just kind of be a passerby. Naughty Children side scheme. When two threat and the is it crisis icon? I don't, you had to thwart this first. When revealed, I don't remember the names of those. When revealed, place 1 threat here for each different resource type on cards in your hand. Oh boy. Okay. So this could be 6. It could be 3. I don't know a situation where you've lost your entire hand before this comes into play. Either way, it's nothing special, but at the same time, it will definitely trip you up if it comes at the wrong time. I know that from experience. Sometimes side schemes just really play with your heart. Then we move on to the extra cards outside of her pack. Mutant Mayhem, leadership card. So I'm not going to have a great read on this because leadership is maybe my biggest blind spot. 3 cost alliance event. Hero action. I don't know why I saw hero as each. Each action. Hero action. Choose an X-Force ally and an X-Men ally and return them to their owner's hand. Those players play those allies ignoring their resource cost. Okay, so I see the benefit of the healing and the recursion, and quite honestly, sometimes you just want that played from hand ability. And obviously 3 cost is going to be less than the sum of 2 different allies. Now you are playing with X-Force and you are playing with X-Men together to make this work. But I did sort of expect that we would see this design space because we already saw with the Avengers and the Guardians. People who are wiser about leadership than me will probably be able to really peg how this works or how efficiently it works. I think it's cool. I don't know how much use I will get out of it. Next up. Okay, then we've got the second copy of Unlikely Duo. And the only other cards are... We didn't get any aggression cards. Oh well. So Serve and Protect. 2 cost event. Alliance again. When an amount of threat would be placed on the main scheme, exhaust an X-Force character and an X-Men character. Oh, I suppose the other one for allies, right? Yeah, because it's leadership. Okay, so this could be Cable and Cyclops in some hypothetical situation. Prevent that threat and give each of those characters a tough status. Okay, so I see more use for this because it can be a hero or it can be an ally. I think the tough status is relevant. And you prevent the threat. There's a lot going on here. I think this is probably a better card than it might read as I'm looking at it. This does impress me. I don't want to say this is an awesome card, but it might be an awesome card. Either way, this is cool. Not sure if it's game breaking or not. And then I think we saw all of these, but we've got Arcade, 2 scheme, 2 attack, assassin, minion with 3 health. Arcade cannot take damage while a trap side scheme, which, looking at this, there are 3 trap side schemes. So while there is this trap side scheme, he cannot take damage. When revealed, discard cards from the top of the encounter deck until a trap side scheme is discarded and reveal it. Okay, so he's going to protect himself. I can respect that. We've got Welcome to Murder World, which has 2 threat on it with Hinder 1. When defeated, the player who defeated this side scheme takes 2 damage, and it's going to give you an extra encounter card every turn. We've got Arcade's Funhouse, which 2 again, Hinder 1 again. The player who defeated this is stunned. If they were already stunned, they discard an ally or upgrade they control. That also seems thematic to Arcade. He is very similar to Nanny and the Orphan Maker. Actually, we didn't get Orphan Maker. That's interesting. But in a very psychotic person. Then we've got Hall of Mirrors. I think we saw all of these in the article. 2 and hinder 1 again. Player who this is going to amplify. This is going to make you thwart it. The player who defeats this is confused. If they're already confused, place 2 throughout the main scheme. Okay. I like all of these, and I think as a encounter set, I will leave it up to Critical Encounters to really break this down in 2025. But, interesting set. Oh, and his last card. Elaborate Trap. Sharks with Lasers. When revealed, resolve the when defeated ability on each trap side scheme as if it were defeated. If no abilities were resolved, discard off the top till you get a trap. Okay, a trap side scheme. Wow, this is a very thematic thing. Cool. I think it's going to push you to get rid of the side schemes, and it's going to be interesting when it gives you a side scheme. So, overall, I was excited for Jubilee, just because she seemed like the kind of card, the kind of hero that I think a lot of people were waiting for. I think she excites a lot of people. This is an interesting pack. I think the cell phone is the one that stands out the most to me, maybe because it's in the art, as kind of a universal item to make that the shopping spree side scheme sort of like relevant to any deck. But overall, what were your thoughts on the Jubilee Hero Pack? What cards stand out to you? And maybe I'll do this next time for Nightcrawler when September rolls around. But either way, I thank you for your time. This went far longer than I was expecting. I thought I was just going to blow through everything like a minute per card. But of course, I am a talker, so this was bound to happen. Either way, thank you, and more content is on the way. Have a great weekend. I suppose you could be watching this at any time. Just have a great day.